What's up, Guardians, and welcome to another Destiny gameplay video. Excited to bring you a breakdown from the Bungie Twitch reveal stream yesterday of the new social space and some of the new features that will be coming to us in the new DLC, the House of Wolves. So I wanted to boil this whole stream down. You know, it lasted almost an hour. So I'm going to boil it down for you, just kind of hit the highlights. And this may be a little bit different for some of my viewers. I tend to do only PvP, but there's a lot of changes coming in the House of Wolves that will dramatically affect the way that PvP plays out. So I wanted to break down this specific Twitch stream reveal and kind of give some of my thoughts about how it's going to affect the game when we talk about PvP. So I'll just hit everything that they talked about and then offer some of my thoughts afterwards. So first and foremost, the first thing we saw is they take us up to our new storyteller, and that is Petra. So she will take you through all of the Queen's Wrath missions and story quests that you're going to be given. She's also a vendor of things like shaders, and that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about. One of the things that you'll see throughout this entire reveal stream is that there are a lot of new things that are going to make Guardians unique. So there's tons of new shaders, there's lots of new ships. There's stuff we're going to get to down the road that's also going to enhance player uniqueness and individuality in ways that players can kind of express their own specific style, which is great. Now, I hovered over all of those missions that are in the top banner there, and they're going to be taking us to some familiar places pretty much everywhere but Mars. So we'll get to go to Venus, we'll get to go to the moon, we'll get to go to the Cosmodrome, and basically the way that Deej explained it is that these missions are going to be taking you to hunt down some of the most notorious criminals in the House of Wolves. So she also shows us something else, and that is a sweet-looking new ship. And so if you're going to be leveling up your reputation with the Queen's Wrath, you can get your hands on that ship. So in terms of the storytelling, and Petra herself, we get a new character, and Gathalion throughout, this is kind of one of the things I liked about the stream, is that Gathalion was asking a lot of questions that, you know, some people might be a little bit too timid to ask in person when he's standing there with these guys, and he was just raw and asked some really real questions that players want to know the answers to. So he asked the question, are these missions and these quests that we're going to be given for the main story from Petra, are they just going to be rehashes of the Queen's Wrath bounties that we saw early on after launch when Queen's Wrath was one of the events? And they explained that no, these aren't going to be rehashes. This is going to be all new content, all new story content, new enemies, and hopefully that means some new locations. I'm hoping, I'm not entirely sure what this is going to look like, but I'm hoping that these missions, you know, they're taking us to the Cosmodrome, they're taking us to Venus, they're taking us to the moon, and I'm really hoping that they're going to take us into some new spaces that have been locked away so far. Because what we saw with the Dark Below is that some of the story content recycled space that we are really familiar with already. And so even the strike that we got our hands on with Omnigul, the overwhelming majority of that strike is just taking you through spaces that we've been through dozens, maybe even hundreds of times. So it didn't necessarily feel like a new experience, even though it was supposed to be a new experience. And then once you get into the complex where Omnigul is, it's just a couple of corridors, a couple of you know, bigger rooms that you get to experience that are quote-unquote new, even though players were glitching into those spaces long before we had access. So hopefully this means that this experience with the House of Wolves is going to take us to some new spaces. That's what I'm really hoping for. So then the stream takes us to Varix. He's the warden of the Prison of Elders, and he's from the House of Judgment. He's described as one of the oldest fallen still living. He has two of his limbs are replaced with mechanical ones, so he's seen some action, and he's seen some hard time. So in his inventory, you'll actually see that some of the Prison of Elders rewards are present in his inventory. So there are things that you can, say for example, you have a hard time getting your hands on a black hammer. You've done the raid dozens of times and it refuses to drop for you. Well, some of those rewards can be purchased with materials that you acquire while doing the event, while doing the Prison of Elders. And so one of the interesting things that I actually saw when I kind of hovered over his inventory here is that there's this thing called Judgment's Chance. And it looks like there are some materials that you'll acquire in the Prison of Elders, an armor core or a weapon core, or maybe you acquire them somewhere else, I don't know. We're all just speculating at this point. But they can be traded in. You trade in one of each for a chance at getting some of the gear that is rewarded in the Prison of Elders activity. So maybe that'll increase your chances of getting your full collection, getting your full set from the activity, and save you some of the frustration of trying to replay the activity over and over and over again and continuing to not be rewarded the one thing that you need. And then we're also shown this AR here called Wolf Slayer's Claw. And one of the neat things about it is that it does additional damage to shanks. So you kind of stick it to the shanks with this gun. Looks really cool. I like some of the new some of the new weapons with this DLC, how they look very similar to some of the Fallen tech. And I think that's kind of neat. Gives it a little bit more character. And that's one of the things we'll get to later, is that we're seeing that there's a lot of new weapons, a lot of new gear that's not just reskinning or recycling archetypes that we're already familiar with, but there's some brand new stuff out there, which is really, really sweet. So I'm really excited for the Prison of Elders. I think it's going to be a blast. I think that, you know, I've been a PvP focused channel for a long time, and I haven't covered any of the raid content just because there's a lot of people out there doing that. But I do find the PvE activities to be fun. I do find them to be, the raids so far I don't think have been greatly challenging. So I think that maybe I can look forward to some more challenging features with the Prison of Elders, and I am planning on actually covering some of that in the channel. So it'll still be mainly PvP focused. I'm pretty sure Trials of Osiris is going to pretty much dominate my channel for a while, but I'll probably throw in a video here and there on the Prison of Elders, so you can expect to see that as well. So next they take us to the guy that I'm going to be spending a lot of time with, Brother Vance, and he's sort of the emissary for Osiris and for the Trials of Osiris. So he's the one you're going to come to when you're entering into the Trials of Osiris. They didn't give us a lot of information about the trials, but that is probably because they're saving their content for next week when they do the Trials of Osiris reveal. They did share that the Trials of Osiris will run Friday until Tuesday at reset time. So it's pretty much just a weekend activity, which honestly for me is kind of a bummer. It's a little bit of a bummer for me that it's not a full week thing, because my weekends tend to be really, really busy. So I'm kind of bummed about that, to be honest, but I do have Mondays off, so that'll probably be my trials day. And they actually did hover over some of these consumables, which are interesting. One of them makes it so that they're consumables, and when you take it, it makes it so that you'll automatically be awarded a win. So you know that'll go towards your wins, and you'll have that win just as a sort of buffer. Another one makes it so that your first loss is overlooked; it'll be forgiven, and then the last consumable makes it so that your first win counts as 2. So some interesting consumables there that might affect how the game plays out in the Trials of Osiris. Next we move on to the bounty guy. Pretty much just the same bounty guy. It's just another bounty guy that gives the same bounties that we already have access to at the tower. So beside him is also a vault, so you can still access your vault from the Reef social space. One of the things that I noticed they didn't show us was a cryptarch, so I don't know if we'll be able to decrypt our engrams there in the Reef space or not. But they did give us some incentive to go back to the tower, which is good, because I didn't want, one of the things I was worried about is that the Reef was going to replace the tower and we wouldn't see people going back to the tower anymore. And there are a lot of vendors there at the tower that kind of have no meaning anymore. You know, we may have visited them frequently at the very beginning of the game, but now we almost never see them. So they're using some of these vendors to provide us with some new benefits, like the speaker. And so now we have, with the speaker, this great opportunity to basically the way that Deej described it is to play a shell game, where all of these things that we've been stockpiling, mainly, you know, Ascendant Energy and Ascendant Shards, and now Radiant Energy and Radiant Shards, Motes of Light, Strange Coins, all these things can be moved and exchanged, so that the things you've got a million of actually have purpose again, which is great. So that's going to be fun to be able to use that feature. And then it takes us to the faction vendors, and this had me really excited. This has me really pumped. New faction gear. So look at this. I mean, you've got the Pacifier Heavy Machine Gun, you've got the Vindicator AR. These weapons, they're not just reskins, they are completely new archetypes, which look great. And I'm really excited because another thing you'll notice is that these weapons have brand new skills on them. If you take a second, I kind of freeze framed it and tried to read some of the print here. It's kind of hard to make out, and I can't make out the second skill, but if you look at this Red Hand 9, notice that the first skill on it, the first perk on this weapon, if you kind of squint, you can make out what it says. It says, this weapon grants bonus target acquisition. And I was like, what? That's going to be huge in PvP. And I'm certain that with the new perks and things that are coming out, and I'm sure that Bungie already knows this, is that they're going to have to probably address some new balancing issues that we're going to encounter with these perks on the weapons. And so next in the stream, they take us to people like Lord Shax, and they show off some of the new Crucible gear. And if you look at this Warlock, the gear looks great. And then after that, he models for us the new Vanguard gear as well. So just super pumped about some of this new gear we're going to get our hands on. But also one of the things that a lot of people are going to be pretty excited about is that all your 300 level guns and weapons that you've been hanging on to, you can now upgrade those to the new damage threshold of 365. This is great for people like me who have some 300 weapons we've been hanging on to for the Crucible, but we can't use them in PvE and we can't use them in the Iron Banner. Well, now we can upgrade those things and they'll be relevant across the boards. And then another thing people are going to love is that, and note this is only applicable to the House of Wolves DLC weapons. So once you get your hands on any weapon in the House of Wolves DLC, what you can do is take it to the gunsmith, and he can now reforge that for you. And it's for relatively cheap. There's not a lot that goes into it. So it'll be pretty easy to re-roll those things and get the rolls on them that you want for whatever purpose you have for that gun. So it can kind of be tailor-made to your liking. And then lastly, the great thing is that any armor you have can be upgraded to the new threshold. So you can reach the max level or about there, and you can look different than everyone else. And that was one of the major problems with the Dark Below, is that eventually we all just looked the same, running around with the same raid armor plus one exotic. And so that was a real bummer. So this will be exciting, that we'll have a little bit of our individuality back. So that's pretty cool. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. Hope this was able to shed some light on some things for you. I would encourage you, a little bit of an announcement here. I'm going to be doing some streaming work for the Aim Assist guys. So if you're not familiar with their podcast, you should check it out. Great podcast. They're going to be doing some streaming in the month of May, and they brought me on board to handle the Tuesday streams. So all throughout the month of May, if you tune in 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern time, you'll get me. I'll be doing some streaming there on the Aim Assist Twitch stream account. And basically, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to take a fire team of people into the Crucible, probably skirmish, and we're just going to give ourselves lots of handicaps on each game and just kind of have some fun challenging ourselves. And it should be entertaining. We'll do things like a blue weapons only challenge, where we'll have to see if we can win a match only using blue weapons. Another one we'll do, I've kind of dubbed it the cat and mouse game. And how that'll work is that for the first minute and a half of the match, we can go on the offensive and try and rack up as many kills as possible. But then for the second minute and a half, we have to disengage, and all we can do is run. We can't do any offense of any kind. And so for a minute and a half, we're just going to be trying to evade the other team. And then once that minute and a half is up, we can turn around, re-engage the enemy, and try and win a match doing this game. So doing lots of fun stuff like this. So hopefully you'll tune in for that, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. So thanks for stopping by, guys. Thanks again for supporting the channel. We'll catch you later.